Good morning, eighth grade. It's Friday here. While I'm making this video, I'm trying to get a few made ahead of time so that way I have more time to do other stuff, grading and stuff I need to do on the actual day that these go out. So it'll probably be today's probably Monday or Tuesday when you're watching these. I'm not sure yet, but it doesn't matter. So we're into chapter 8. You should have taken the chapter 7 test by now. And we're talking today about the United States growth from really what you would maybe call a confederation, a group of connected but loosely connected states into congealing into not only world power, a powerhouse militarily and financially around the world, but maybe the world powerhouse in a lot of ways. We've always had other countries that could be considered superpowers. No, I mean, I say always because hasn't always been this way. We're talking about that today, becoming that way. But there have always been other countries, China specifically now, USSR and Russia, whatnot, that have always been jockeying for position. Great Britain, of course, near the top with us. But imperialism and empire building has been a dream of a lot of Americans for a long time. And it was something that George Washington really warned against when he left. He basically said, I'm leaving. I'm not going to be president anymore. It's going to be up to you to run the country. But I have two pieces of advice. Number one, don't create political parties. And number two, don't stick our nose into other countries' business. And so, of course, as soon as he left, we created political parties and started sticking our nose in other countries' business. He supported isolationism, which is what it sounds like, sticking to your own affairs, worrying about your problems in your own country before you try to expand. And like I said a minute ago, stick your nose in other countries' business or try to deal with their problems or take land from them. However, it's pretty, I mean, you could argue about the morality of it. Imperialism and taking other countries' land and stuff. And in fact, most people, it's not really moral to just say, well, we want your country, so we're going to declare war on you and take it. But it was the way of life for, many centuries. But the urge to get more land is natural. People still have that now. They want bigger pieces of property and whatnot. Not everybody, but a lot of people do. And so Americans are expanding their territory by moving west and south. And expansionism and the idea of what we call manifest destiny. A lot of people believe that it was destiny ordained by God that America stretch from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. Now, for a fact, we know now, not only did that come to fruition, but in fact, we go farther. We, as you're going to learn about coming up pretty soon, have Alaska and Hawaii, which are, of course, not just on the Pacific coast, but past the Pacific coast. And so once we have stretched from ocean to ocean, American merchants start to look overseas. Japan, of course, is a longtime friend and enemy, and it's sometimes frenemy of the United States. They were basically isolationist at this time. They were focused inward, worrying about only Japan. However, we sent a guy named Matthew Perry, not Chandler from Friends, but a different guy named Matthew Perry, with 4 ships, basically saying, he asked nicely, like, hey, I'll be back in a few months, but look at those boats back there. Just think about what they can do. It'd be basically like if I borrowed $5 from you and you came up to me a month later and like, hey, can I have my money back? And I'm like, nah. Or you came up to me, a month later, tapping a baseball bat on your hand and like be like, hey, really would like that money back. You might say the same words, but the implication there and the implication that Perry has, implication means saying something without saying it. The implication he's giving is that if you don't agree, to trade with us, then I'm going to bring those boats back, and they're not just going to sit out there all purdy in your bay. They are going to unload on you. And so when he returned, the Japanese were like, you know what? Being bombed into a paste doesn't sound great to us. So yes, we will open our ports and start a trading relationship with America. And so other Western nations also began to, Canada, Great Britain, France, and Spain, began to expand their trade and influence into Germany, of course, Russia. We'll get into all these later. And so the late 1800s, early 1900s were called an age of imperialism. Okay. And these European nations start jockeying for position, trying to expand their country. Now, the problem is, and this is a little appetizer, a little sneak peek. The problem is Europe is only so big, and each country therein, each country that lays within Europe, if it grows, that means a different country has to shrink. Okay? And so if Germany grows, it's taking land from one of its neighbor countries. Bottom line, and the next chapter is going to deal with this, this sets up basically the conditions under which World War I breaks out. So you get all the, imagine, some of you have siblings for sure, and you probably bicker and fight with them all the time. But imagine if you had, 50 siblings living in one house. And that's, if you look at a map of Europe, there are a lot of countries in a not very big landmass, Russia aside. Russia's a big old honker, but the rest of them, not so much. Some Americans wanted to build a nation, wanted our nation to build an empire by annexing. Annex means to add to. William H. Seward, who had been a longtime Secretary of State, in fact, he was appointed by Lincoln, he supported this view. And as such, he purchased Alaska for $7.2 million. Now, $7.2 million, okay, is that a lot of money? Well, sure. If you had $7.2 million, if I did, that's a lot of money. But when you're talking about land deals on a global nationwide scale, it's not a lot of money at all, especially once you consider Alaska's huge. A lot of people have the mistaken idea that Texas is by size our largest state. That is because of lying map projections. There are map projections that lie to you. There's a website you can Google called like the true size of, where you can drag things around the map. Think about a tennis ball. Okay, if you make a drawing on the tennis ball and you slide, because maps are flat and the globe is round. I'm sorry to Kyrie Irving, who thinks the earth is flat, but it's not. The globe is round. But think about a tennis ball. If you drew a picture on the face of a tennis ball and then you slice the tennis ball back and flatten it out, it would distort the picture. It would make things look as they aren't exactly. And that's where you get Alaska. Alaska and things at the top and bottom get shrunk down to fit on the maps. But Alaska is huge, huge. Google Alaska to scale. TOSCALE, to scale, like proper scale, and look at the Google image searches if you don't believe me. But anyway, he was dragged, roasted mercilessly. People are like, you bought, they called it a polar bear's garden. They called it, you bought a giant ice box. Sewer's folly means mistake or whatever. Then we found billions of dollars worth of gold and oil, and it was like, oh, maybe that is a great purchase. And so Americans also believed that they had a duty to push their religion on other people. They considered other people uncivilized because they didn't follow the same customs and have the same culture as we did, which is a very self-centered view that it's not just an American issue, but a lot of Western countries have had this issue a lot of times. A lot of times people don't have their society doesn't have, modern conveniences because they don't want them. And that is a choice that people should be allowed to make without Americans being like, no, not only are we going to push our religion on you, but we're going to push, our idea of what culture should look like on you. That you should have private land ownership. You should be, watching TV instead of hunting and gathering. And, a lot of cultures just don't want that. And so we are having a lot of trade with Latin America, and we passed the Monroe Doctrine, which was passed when James Monroe was president, so it had been there. But basically it said we can interfere in Latin America. Latin America is basically the countries south of us, but north of South America. So like the little chain of countries starting with Mexico that used to connect North and South America. We dug the Panama Canal through it, but that's another. We'll get to that later. But basically, we said Europe has to stay out of their business, but we could trade with them. And so that's basically just an ATM for us. And so Alfred Thayer, his actual last name is Mahan. He realized or believed that we should expand our Navy, and that if we are going to expand our role and our footprint on other countries, we're going to have to do some bombing. And that came to be true. Now, like I said, you can argue of whether or not that's a good, or bad thing to, oh, well, we're going to get more land. That's good, but we're going to bomb other people to do it. Maybe it's not so much. And so basically, he was basically saying we can take over these small islands and then build bases there and use them as a foothold or a jumping off point to get to these bigger islands. And that's it for today. Attendance question for today is, what is your favorite color? We've done that one already before. It doesn't matter. The point isn't the answer. The point is that you've watched the video. So put your favorite color in the Google form that I will attach today, and that counts as your attendance to let me know that you've watched the video. Otherwise, have a good rest of the day and week. I don't know what day this is you're watching it. I know it's Friday that I'm recording it, but wash hands, stay safe, social distance, all that good stuff, and I will see you soon. Bye.